Tony D and Little Joan in the background, and this is, I don't know, it's a hot take or screenwriter's rant or whatever. Talking about movies, there's no good trailers out, so I'm going to talk about the Garfield movie and Furiosa. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but the Garfield movie is on track to beat Furiosa at the box office in its second weekend. So, yeah. It's kind of embarrassing. Smash a like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. Links in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. Books 1 through 14. So, a cartoon, pretty much meant for children, is beating out the big summer blockbuster Furiosa. Why? And not only that, technically it's already won because overseas, the Garfield movie did about 26 million more than Furiosa in total. So Yellow Flash calls Furiosa the end of the girl boss movie. I don't think that was the main problem with the movie. Lots of people say the movie's pretty watchable, actually. It's not even that girl bossy. The problem with it is, it was a dumb move. You might have been able to sell this thing with Charlize Theron reprising the role and doing a sequel, spin-off type movie. Maybe. I think you would have done a little better. The problem, number one, is prequels. Prequels don't work. Not really. This was an unnecessary prequel. Had you done a prequel to Mad Max? Maybe. Yeah, you could have done a prequel to Mad Max. Something with Mad Max in it, number one. But if you didn't have Mad Max, you could have set Furiosa in the world prior to the collapse of civilization, right? You did have... I mean, how old is Charlize Theron supposed to be in Fury Road? Like 50? I don't know how old she is in real life. I think she's approaching 50. So you could have set Furiosa in a time when she was a little girl and... the civilization was unraveling, and then maybe while she was a teen, and then seeing how civilization killed itself. Like, that would have been slightly more interesting, because we only got a hint of that in the Mad Max franchise, if you recall. I mean, it's been many years since the first Mad Max movie came out, but it would have been interesting to tie it into that movie. And you could have seen Tom Hardy maybe recreate a scene from Mad Max, right? You could have seen him recreate, just like his cameo could have been a scene, the famous scene in Mad Max, spoilers if you haven't seen it, is Mad Max is out to kill the criminals because he's a cop, and civilization's unraveling, and I want to say they kill his wife and kid, but I don't remember exactly who they kill. I think they kill his wife. So he just decides he's had enough. And so the climax of the movie is he chases down this guy, runs him off the road with his car. They both crash. The criminal is pinned underneath the car. There's gasoline leaking. And then he uses a broken headlight to accumulate the gas that's leaking near the guy. And he rigs it in such a way that once it gets to a certain point, the gas will ignite. I forget what he does. I want to say he puts a candle there, but I don't think it was a candle. I forget. And then he walks away, and then as he's walking away, whoosh, the guy goes up in flames, and you hear him screaming. So it's a pretty intense scene. It's the climax of the movie, really, and that's basically the end of the movie. You could have maybe recreated that scene in a different context with Furiosa. Like, she could have been a witness to the Mad Max scene and maybe not even realized it. Later she meets Mad Max, doesn't realize it's the same guy, or kind of does. And you would have gotten to see the fall of civilization, because we don't really see it. What happens is you're seeing in Mad Max 1, like, civilization's on the brink, but it hasn't been a nuclear war yet. Mad Max 2, it's already happened. It's already happened. The cities are dead. Everything's been blown up. Now, it's the Mad Max that, with the desert crap. That would have been interesting. Instead, we get the background to what is his name, Immortal Joe or Immorto Joe or whoever he is. Who cares? And then a new guy, Chris Hemsworth character. I forget what they call him, like Dr. Demenis or something. Two rival warlords who go at it. Again, who cares? Furiosa is trying to avenge, I think, her mother. And, like, it's not, again, it's not the worst movie you ever seen, but who cares? You don't care about these characters, you care about Max. The next thing you could argue is what people care about is the world of Mad Max. That's kind of, that's a big drop. It's a big drop after you. In the Mad Max movies, there's Mad Max and then there's everything else. But the next thing on that hierarchy, even though it's way down, would be the world. And in fact, the next movie was supposed to be called The Wasteland. Whatever that means. Like, they're trying to expand the world of Mad Max. You can't expand it this way. Like, if you'd done it as a TV show, maybe you could have done that. With a TV show, you could have added Max, and then you could have added new characters. You could have introduced new characters and people that Mad Max interact with, or you could have made Mad Max like some sort of roaming lone gunman who only shows up in the big fights and the big moments of the series, and then you build up, I don't know, various other characters like Furiosa, and then maybe after a few seasons of that, some character emerges that's pretty popular. The problem is we're not on a merit-based system anymore. Furiosa is not a movie that was made on its merits. In previous years, when they talked about doing a sequel, what would they do? They would pick or a prequel, but really it might as well be a sequel. They would pick characters and franchises that were popular, solely based on their popularity. Star Wars was a beast. Of course they were going to do more Star Wars. That wasn't ever in question. That they did prequels hurt it and started its decline, I think, but or even before that, really. But they were going to do that. They just had an article about the movie 9 to 5, which they're rebooting. There was a plan to do a sequel to that movie because it had been popular. There have been plans to do sequels to all sorts of popular movies that either never happened or some did. Some are good, some are bad. But those sequels were mostly about, well, the movie did real well. People want to see more of that. Now, the problem Hollywood used to have with that is they would do a sequel and they would essentially rehash the first movie because they said, oh, people like this, do it again. And then you'd end up with basically the same movie, only not as good. And then if that one still did pretty good, they'd do it again. So that wasn't good either. But now doing this, what they set out to do wasn't to make a movie based on anything popular. They set out to go, well, in my view, they set out to say, well, we need a female protagonist. And they probably started that plan back when they did Fury Road. They probably said, well, we want to do Fury Road to introduce Furiosa so we can then do a Furiosa movie and then we don't need Mad Max anymore. Because that's the way these guys have been thinking for a long, long time. This is like the same thing they did with James Bond, right? Or tried to. They announced, oh, we're going to have a new Bond. You don't need the white man to be James Bond. You just need the 007. We're going to give that to a black woman, and people went nuts, and they put the kibosh on it, realizing, oh, we'll lose our shirts. So this is why the movie failed, in my view. It failed because it was just a dumb idea. It doesn't matter that the movie's halfway decently executed, has some cool stunts, and it's not even a poor script. It's misleading, and it's not based on merit. It would have been like, oh, we're going to do a Mad Max sequel. Who was the only black character in that? And you pick out the one black guy in it and say, oh, we're doing a movie about him. They sort of did that with the Obi-Wan show. That out of nowhere came a black character who was, she was supposed to be like a former Sith who turns into a Jedi or something. And they put a lot of money behind the character. They were all ready to do a spin-off. They were all ready to do toys. It was a complete failure. Why? Because they didn't do that based on merit. They didn't develop the character based on merit. They started with, we need a black woman. Same thing with the Acolyte. We need more women. We need women to take over Star Wars. That's their start. That's not what they need at all. If anything, they need to go, what made Star Wars popular? Oh, adventure, thrills, chills. It was based partly on the idea of the old serials like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. We need to get back to that. We need swashbuckling adventure. We need characters swinging on ropes and swinging in with a lightsaber and saving the day. Like if they had gotten back to that in their TV series, oh, they'd have a lot of people. They'd have a lot of fans again. Instead, they have this. They have, oh, well, you're going to love the Acolyte because here's someone who with they, them pronouns, everybody. So Furiosa, in my view, never stood a chance to really do that well. It's riding on the coattails of Mad Max for what that's worth. And it's really riding on the coattails of Fury Road, which rode on the coattails of Mad Max. And they could have easily made $1 billion simply by having Mel Gibson star as Mad Max again and do the final movie. And they could have spun it off with Tom Hardy as Mad Max, son of Mad Max. And they could have had Furiosa 2. They could have had a whole team of characters, right? They could have had a whole team of characters. And in the end, Mad Max sacrifices himself to save the group. And then, you got a whole group of characters here. And then you spin them off all in their own movies. And then they're different, right? So the son of Mad Max, which would probably be the most popular out of them, would be first. But Furiosa would be in there. And it could be it could maybe be a love story between her and the son of Mad Max, and it could be about how they eventually met and became a couple. And then, whoever else was in their team, how they met and got their crazy name or abilities or whatever. So, meanwhile, the Garfield movie, what is it? Well, first off, it's a cartoon. It's general audiences for the most part. I think it's PG or PG-13. Audience can reliably count that it's just going to be the same damn movie. It's popular already. We haven't seen it in a while. It's a different actor voicing him and probably slightly updated, but ultimately it's going to be pretty inoffensive, which is why I think a lot of people saw it. Because, hey, it's not going to offend me. Furiosa, what you did was immediately alienate the Mad Max fans by not putting Mad Max in. I think he makes a cameo in the movie. Not enough. Not enough by a long shot. So, yeah. Not a good idea. And so that, to me, is why it's failing. Now, here's the other big thing that dropped today. Clownfish TV has a really good video on AI. And now there is a platform, an AI platform that is essentially what I talked about before. It's going to be the Netflix of cinema. It won't have movies, but what it may have is a bunch of characters licensed by various studios, right? So the example they used was a South Park episode. So what they did was they don't have the rights to South Park, but they did it as an example. They were able to put in a bunch of material from South Park so the computer understood the basics of it and the look and everything. And then they asked the AI to do a South Park episode. And the South Park episode they did has a lot of problems. Like they had Cartman and Butters, and they had the wrong voices. But the voices they had were fun to show. Like Stan was doing the voice of Butters, and then I forget who was doing the voice of Cartman. But that wouldn't take much to fix. and it looked like a real episode. And plot wise, well, I'd have to see more of it, but it was feeling pretty close. And that's the technology now. And that was just based on a prompt. You know, the prompts you have when you do the AI art, if you've ever used that. You know, you ask it, draw me a picture of an astronaut riding a unicorn, and the computer does that. Now you'll be able to say, write me an episode of South Park about the dangers of AI, let's say. The computer will, if it has the access to the South Park stuff, will be able to render something. So the idea behind the platform now is it's going to have not movies, but it's going to have the platform and a bunch of characters and potential, basically characters and sets and situations for potential. And you tell the AI what you want, and then the AI makes a movie based on that and based on the resources that it has. So what we're going to see in the future is, for instance, you may have seen these movies, say, or these video games, what's it called? Kings of Heart. And that's the Disney one. It's got all Disney characters in it. And then there's another one for Warner Brothers. I forget what it's called. And it has like Looney Tunes and the DC Heroes and a bunch of others. So, and you can make them all interact together, right? You can have characters from Scooby-Doo meet the Justice League, meet anybody from Warner Brothers, and same thing with Disney. So, but that kind of scale is nothing when you talk about these platforms. What you'll eventually be able to do when Warner Brothers gets a hold of this technology, let's say, is you'll be able to say, make me a movie about Superman, I don't know, fighting Batman. And the AI will make the movie. And you'll just wait and it'll process, and then boom, the movie will pop out. And will it be good? Well, that's another story entirely. I don't think it's going to be good, but the novelty will be, at first, very interesting. And the idea behind it, too, is you're also going to be, if you subscribe to the platform, you'll be able to make the movie, right? So, for instance, you might have access to all the Marvel characters, probably in cartoon form at first, and for a certain price. And you'll be able to make, say, a short about Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, or whatever. Maybe you make a whole movie. And then you'll be able to upload that on the platform, perhaps, to get clicks and views, and then that will be worth some amount of money. And then you'll split that with, say, Disney, the platform, and yourself. So you'll be able to make, say, the Superman show, right? So let's say you made your own version of the Superman show where Superman is like Space Ghost, and he asks all sorts of ridiculous questions, and it's very funny and becomes popular. Well, you can keep making it all you want, and you can have whatever voice Warner Brothers gives you access to, and then you can edit it, put it in the music. Voila, you have another Space Ghost. You can make Space Ghost coast to coast, quite frankly. Now think about this. Furiosa, not even a bad movie, but terrible idea. I just gave you a bunch of ideas for my version of the Mad Max movie. You'll be able to do that, right? So a studio that would have access, for instance, to, let's say they had the rights to the original Mad Max movie, or all the Mad Max movies. Well, now you've got the rights to do your Mel Gibson movie. So now you make Mad Max 4, the one we want to see. Maybe it's Mad Max when he's old. Maybe it's just another Mad Max movie. And you just make some badass movie, and it's live action. And the computer renders everything. You put in the music, maybe you edit a couple things out here and there, or you throw in some more dialogue, you throw in some new characters. You post that, again, on the website with their permission, probably other parameters. Voila. Now, the downside to all this, of course, is if they make the AI as well, which they're attempting to do. I don't know if that's going to work. They'll definitely have to put some guardrails on it, because otherwise they'll be making, racist Mad Max, and you know what's coming if they just completely let people loose on this thing. It's probably going to happen anyway, but they need some amount of control over it, or else it'll quickly unravel. And once this technology's out there, I don't even think having a subscription to AI will be a thing. It'll be so cheap, so much processing. The only people who will have access to the really big stuff, will be the people with the high enough computers. Like my current computer probably won't be able to even do that. I'll probably have to upgrade my computer like through the moon to make a Pineys movie that I want. And I don't know what sort of licensing fee I'm going to have to pay the platform in order to get the Pineys movie that I want, with the characters that I want and the voices that I want. Eventually it's going to be at the point where I'll just tell the AI, here's my audiobook of the Pineys with all the voices of the characters. Please use these voices. Now make a live action version of the Pineys and use all the dialogue. Voila. And then once that's made, then I can say, okay, now we're going to do book 2. Here's book 2. You upload it. I say use the dialogue, again use the voices, and then then I just sit there and edit it and say, well, we got to tweak this, tweak that, and then I'll be able to put that up, maybe in an afternoon. I don't know. It'll quite a boon to me, but that just means Hollywood is screwed. If somebody can make a movie in their laptop that's better than the movies they're putting out for $100 million, Hollywood's done. Hollywood is done. It's going to be pure ideas, and it's going to be owning the tools and the platform, not owning the actual stuff. Because the actual stuff, well, the platform and the software will be the value. The ideas, everybody has their own damn ideas. I was just talking to somebody else the other day about comedy, and how he was arguing like, oh, that guy's funny, you should give him another chance. Like I was saying, he wasn't very funny, this guy we know. And he said, no, he's funny. I said, look, there's coworker funny, and then there's comedian funny. This will give people who are coworker funny, like you and your friends at work, you're going to be able to do, and I'm not knocking people, I'm not trying to put people down who don't do professional comedy, but this is true. People who aren't professional comedians are capable of making stuff that's very funny, but it's usually very local to them and their friends, which is why it's very funny, by the way, because it connects on a very personal level when you make it that sort of custom. When you're making comedy for other people, it's often very hard to connect with people if you don't know them. That's why comedians do what's called crowd work. Anyhow, my point is, those coworker comedians will be very funny and can use these tools to make, instead of making a little wacky video with clip art, you'll be able to make a wacky video, a wacky movie about your friend Jack's promotion at work and all the crazy stuff he went through to get it, and you'll be able to use an image of Jack, and then maybe you'll make him do a bunch of stunts in the videos and finally get to work on time. It'll be a big joke and people will laugh and it'll look amazing. And that will be the equivalent of using clip art today, Well, back in the 90s, that's what we used to use. Like, you have to make a sign, happy birthday, Jack. Oh, I'll put some balloons on that and, print it in color on my dot matrix printer. That's what we did back in the day. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting for me as a guy who's a screenwriter and analyzing movies. I may finally get to make the movies I want. I hope I live long enough that I can push those buttons and say, hey, computer, let me see that scene again. Make it a little more intense this time. Anyhow, that's my thoughts on AI. More thoughts on movies tomorrow on the live stream. Check us out Sunday on the live stream. Check me out at the Clarion Hotel in Essington, PA, Sunday from 10 to 3. Hope to see you there. We'll see you tomorrow.